Hey everyone, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this really pretty card. Now, I will say I made this for a card class and I did not have the chance to make the card video sample ahead of time, so the Paradise Palms stamp set has since retired. So I'm actually going to modify this and I'm going to attempt to show you how to do it, hopefully with just a little bit of greenery from the oceanfront stamp set. So we're going to add these to the beach. So this has a couple of steps to it, but none of them are difficult. One other thing I am going to use is I am going to use my Stamparatus for the wave stamp for this. If you have a different stamp positioning tool, you could totally use that. I find that it's easier with this particular card lining it up. Maybe you have a Misty, maybe you have something else. And if not, you can certainly do it with a stamp, but personally, I just find it a little bit easier. So I'm going to slide this over and we're going to begin. And I want to show you one other thing. So if you notice on this, this has a die cut, which we're going to do. I actually put adhesive sheet onto the back of it, okay? So with this stamp, or with this die set, I should say, there are actually two different waves. So you have the background wave, and then you have one that has a little bit more of an arch. So it kind of depends on which one you want to use. You can use them together, so you could layer them together if you wanted to. One definitely has more of a curved look than the other one. So really it's just I'll say viewer's choice. I use this one for here, I'm fairly certain. Yeah, so I think I'll use the one with the square just so you get a little bit of a different look. You can use either one though. They're both really pretty. And then the other thing is I used this little die cut here for my sentiment, and I wrapped some linen thread around it. So that's something else you can do. I've also seen a really cool card, which I'm going to try to duplicate sometime soon, where the pelican was sitting over here and there was just the beach coming towards it, which I thought that was really cool as well. That also does die cut this pelican back here. So just for your information. But the wave paper, so this here, I'm going to show you. I saved this page. I figured it'd be easiest. This is actually in number 5. So this is something that carried over. It's called textured shimmer paper. So there's 3 different colors. It is shaded spruce, balmy blue, and then like a white. It doesn't really have an iridescent look to it, but the paper, and I want to show you here. That's why I got this out. The paper is actually, it's textured. So it's shimmery, but it also has a texture to it. So I'm not sure if you can see on here, but it really gives like another layer of look to this when you die cut it, because it's got depth to it. So it's kind of cool. It's almost like a 3D kind of a card. So that is what we're going to be using. Mine already has adhesive sheet on it. We are using... Oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking on this. Is this Lost Lagoon? Yes, we're using Lost Lagoon as our base card. I know for some time I kept calling it Tranquil Tide, but Tranquil Tide did not come back as opposed to what I thought. So Tranquil Tide, we have Balmy Blue for our wave, and then we're just going to use a couple other colors. So this is going to be our layer. This is 4 by 5 1/4. This is just big enough that I can use it to die cut, and then we have our base card. We're also going to need a scrap to be able to do our sentiment die cut, but we're going to begin with our white piece. Now this is a full sheet, and the reason it is because it's easier to trim it down than it would be to kind of go to the size and then hope that you landed on the right size. I hope that makes sense, because that sounded very convoluted once I actually said it out loud. So I'm also going to try this version with our new Lemon Lolly, and then bringing in just a little bit of Daffodil Delight. So we're going to see what that looks like. So we're kind of having 2 different colors. I'm going to do a little bit different down here for the beach as well. So we're going to use one of our smaller, nope, that one's dirty. Let's see, one of our smaller blending brushes, okay? If you've used these for something different, which this one I used for, what is that stuff called? It's 3 different ones. Enamel paint. It's like in a squeezy tube. You can clean them out. I've cleaned these out and used them over and over again, so it definitely doesn't have any effect. So the sun's going to be up here, but since we're across, I'm just going to start here and then flip it. So we're going to start with Lemon Lolly. We're going to just bring it into the corner up here. Okay, and then since I'm sticking with yellow, I'm going to bring in just a little bit of Daffodil Delight. Just a little, doesn't need a lot. All right, so there's that. So again, that was Lemon Lolly Daffodil Delight. All right, I'm going to put that aside. And then we're going to bring in on the side over here, we're going to do a little bit of crumb cake because we kind of want our beach to come in. So let me just grab a semi-clean blending brush. What does this one look like? That might not be so bad. So we're going to start, I'm just going to kind of wipe it off a little bit here. We're going to start with crumb cake. And I don't want a lot because we only kind of have this little part of the beach here. Some of it will be covered. So if you goof it up, you can always cover it. So a little bit of crumb cake. You don't want a whole lot of beach. All right. And then I'm going to try this. I've not used the pecan pie, but I'm sure it'll be lovely. I'm going to just do just a little bit of pecan pie. I'm just going to tap so we kind of have that beachy look. There we go. I don't want to do too much. Okay. The other thing, which I forgot, we should have done this, but no big deal. We'll just work with it as we have it. I'm try to find a slightly less blue. Yep. Okay, so that's nice. So then we're going to bring in our sky. Now, if you'll notice on this card, there's a lot of white spots. I kind of did that intentionally, although it doesn't necessarily work every time. And what I did is I tried to make it so it was almost like cloud-esque, if that makes sense. This used Pool Party, but just for something different, let's try Balmy Blue. So what you're doing is you're purposefully avoiding certain areas, okay? So just get your blending brush ready. You're going to kind of just jump around. So you'll see it will come up with like these natural areas that kind of look like clouds. You want to avoid going to the yellow because you don't want to turn it green while it's still wet. But you can go into the water because you're going to stamp that regardless with the stamp. All right, and I'm going to close that up. So Balmy Blue. I'm going to keep this handy just in case I need it for something. We're going to do our wave in Coastal Cabana. So I'm going to just slide this out of the way for a moment. I'm going to grab my Stamparatus. And, okay. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this all the way to the end. And then I want my wave to kind of wash up on the beach, but here's going to be the trick. Okay, so you have this at the end, but you don't want this hard line. So if you can see here on this stamp, it very abruptly ends. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to remedy that. And I need just a piece of scrap. Just grab a scrappy portion. That'd be good enough right there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ink this up in Coastal Cabana, but we're not going all the way to the end here, okay? And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So we have that, and I'm going to just, for the sake of being fun, I'm going to just hit a little bit of Azure Afternoon because I did put a little bit of Pacific Point in that one. So I'm just going to just hit like a couple little spaces. It doesn't really have to be anything specific. Now, if you are looking at this, this is a new pad. So there's definitely a line here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our blue that we used earlier and we're going to just very lightly kind of try to blend the edge. I'm going to just hit it so there's not really any hard lines. And the reason we want to blend the edge is because we want it to look like the surface washing up. Okay? That should be good. So I'm just going to lightly press this. See what it looks like. Yeah, I missed that end. That's okay. Okay, so it kind of looks like the surf here is just coming up, and that's exactly what we want. I know there's a line here. We overcut it, or we overdid it so we could trim it down some. So that looks really good. I think the only thing I want to do is I want to add just a little bit more of that Azure Afternoon to the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my blending brush, and I'm going to just put a little bit of color. Not a lot. And just press. There you go. So you got that little white area. So I'm going to put this away. And then I have my brush which still has some ink on it. So I'm also going to just go in here just to fill in a little bit of the color. Okay. So So that looks pretty good right there. All right. So I'm going to leave this for now. I'll clean that up after a while. All right. So there we go. We have our card mostly done. And again, this is we went with different colors, so we have different tones there. So this wave to me actually looks much more 3D than the other one did. So now we have a couple of other options. So I don't need the balmy anymore. I'm going to go ahead and put that away. We have a couple of other options. If you happen to have a white gel pen, and I have one, I always keep them upside down because I find that they run out really easily if you store them this way. So I try to keep them stored down. See if this one's, yeah. So what you could do is if you have a white gel pen, again, this is a jelly roll pen. I believe I have a link to Amazon. We used to carry these, but we don't any longer. So you can kind of go through and just add a little bit of white, like the surf edge, and I'll show you in just a second what I mean. Hopefully you can see that. So there's that white, it's wet, so you should be able to see there's a white surf edge. I can see it on there reflected. You could do that, okay? You could also kind of add a little bit up here on your wave, just a little bit. It's just kind of highlighting some of the white foam on the wave. Now, if you don't have one, the other thing you could do, if you're fortunate enough to have a white craft ink pad, mine is obviously, you can see, you look how old that is, super old, but that's about how long it lasted. So I do have some white ink there, and I have a blender pen that is specific to the white. My friend Donna was kind enough to print me out a label for it. So because I was always pulling it out. So this one stays with it. So what I do is really hard to get pigment ink out. So this is just my white forever blender pen. I also have a black one. So you're going to just go in and you can just, now this will definitely make it foamy white. The only thing you have to remember with this is pigment ink does take a little bit to dry, so it's not going to dry super quickly. So this will be something, I'm going to try to be super careful. This will be something where you want to make sure you let it dry. So this is kind of be a part you would add at the end. Okay, and then I just recap it and I put it back in there. I do also have a refill for this. I believe these are still coming if you're buying a new product. It's uninked and then you ink the white because they were having an issue with them staying in during transit time. Okay, so once again, I did tell you that the Paradise Palms retired. So what we're going to do is we're going to just add a little bit of something else here. So how about if we add in maybe a couple of rocks? We could do that, and then we can add just a little bit of some seagrass or something there. So let's see. I'm going to go with the smaller seagrass, the rocks, and then the taller seagrass. So we're going to do these. I think what I'm going to do is we're going to do pecan pie, but I might do them stamped off first. So let's see what these look like. Yeah, we're going to go with second. Okay. And I have my sponge dauber here just because I want to make sure. I'm just going to add a little bit of ink to this. You want to be careful with these though, because if you touch, you will see you get a perfect circle. So you want to kind of come in really, really lightly. Just blend the color just a little bit. Okay. And then because you have those and they are pretty dark, you want to go with a pretty good kind of green. And I'm going to do garden because I feel like spruce is just too bright and Christmassy. So we're going to go with garden green. And where's my little, I'm going to bring just this little kind of beach grass in. It's a smaller one and I'm going to put it right here. So we're going to go here. There we go. And then one other thing I want to do is I'm going to take a, where are they? I'm going to take another, this is a clean blender pen. And I'm going to just soften the bottom of that just a little bit. You don't want to work the paper too much if you're just using regular white paper because it can make it pill slightly. So I'm not going to overwork it. I'm trying my very best to just do just a little bit. Clean this off. We're going to swap over to the larger seagrass. That looks good. Kind of blends it in a little bit. So I think that looks pretty nice. Now I am not going to omit the seagulls, so they have to be there. So let me just grab my, I'm going to grab my navy because that's what I did them in before. You kind of want something pretty dark just because it will more so go with the theme of your card. I'm going to just clean this off really quickly since we used the pecan with that. And actually, those are from the Waves of Inspiration. So that is our seagull. Okay. Now, seagulls are great too, because if you made a whoopsie like I did over here, they're really nice for filling something in if you goofed it up. So that kind of depends on what you want to do. You just put a couple of those. You know, they like to ride the waves, so we'll leave them there. All right, so it's a great card. Even just as is, that's a really nice card. It's not too much, but with adding this wave to it, it really is going to pop it up a little bit. So I think, did I already pull this out? That's the wrong one. I think I already decided I wanted to do the one that had more of the square. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to run this. You probably almost could use this for two. And I'm going to make sure I get the corner. I don't really necessarily need this end here. It just depends. I used it on the sample, but it doesn't need to be that way. So it's going to run off. I'm going to run this through my die cut machine. Again, I already have adhesive sheet on the back. And one pass should do it. Okay, so this whole thing will kind of break off. All right, and the nice part about this is everything that isn't going to be part of your card kind of stays in there. Okay, so you really don't have too much left. We're going to pop out those pieces. And honestly, when you remove this, it's going to be even better. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on our card and then trim it. So I hope that makes sense, because I want the bottom part. Actually, you know what? I might change my mind. I think I'm going to cut this little piece off first, and then we'll adhere it and we'll trim it down a little bit if we need to. Yeah, that will definitely work better. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the bottom. We want this to be 4. Just like that. But this side, it kind of depends. It really just which side you prefer. I think because I have the wave here, I'm going to cut this end off. So we want it to be 5 1/4. I'll go ahead and get rid of that one. Yeah, I think when we did this in class, I was telling them to do it one way, and then after the fact, I said, yeah, it's probably better if you do it the other way, because then you'll know what you have. So you have your base piece. So we're going to just take our adhesive backing. We're going to peel it off. And I had 2 different pieces, so it's going to come off just slightly differently. This piece is from the center. We don't need that. You just want to make sure you get most of your wave pieces on there. Okay, so again, we have everything removed. We're going to put this lining kind of right up to the corner there. Best you can. Remember, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's homemade. And then this I'm not pressing down yet, because obviously that's a little far for it to go. Wasn't thinking about it when I did this card. So this one we're going to try to nip. So I'm just going to grab my snips. Plus that way you'll still be able to see the part that is the surf break. What is the word it is I'm trying to use? The sea foam. Seafoam. That now, speaking of seafoam, that's a whole nother color you could use for this if you wanted to. Instead of doing blue, you could totally have gone with green, but I think this looks a lot better. Now, you definitely want to make sure, and a lot of times I'll try to do this, especially if I have inky fingers, I'll just really press it down with my bone folder just to make sure it really adheres. But we have that. Okay, so that looks nice. That's going to go onto our base. Okay, this needs to be trimmed down because this is still a bigger piece. And then we're going to just do our sentiment. So let me grab, I'm pretty sure I had a little scrappy in here. Oh, me peacock, there we go. Or maybe not, that's okay. We're just gonna use this one. So we're gonna put our sentiment on, and I'm gonna grab, what did I do? Oh, I was making another card. That's probably why I couldn't find what I was looking for. I'm going to put on, I think I'm going to use Pretty Peacock because it was just a little bit darker. And I didn't really want it to be too tone on tony. So we're going to go with Happy Birthday because that fits really nicely into this die cut. Okay. Now the cool part about this, just in case you're getting into it, it definitely has other things. So it's got clouds. There's like cloud outlines, and then there's cloud edging, so it kind of gives like the 3D look. There are seagulls, so you could even do 3D seagulls if you wanted to. Not 3D, die cut, that's what I should have said. Take these off, pick up our sentiment. Oh, that is filthy. There we go, a little better. My blocks need a good washing. If you ever have an issue with your stamps not sticking to your blocks, you can wash them. Put them right into the dishwasher if you wanted to, or just hit them with some Dawn soap in the sink. All right, that's nice. So again, that was Pretty Peacock. It was just a little bit darker. Also, the other thing is if you're noticing that things aren't quite as clean, it could be that you need to clean your scrub, because these definitely hold a lot more ink than you realize, trust me. All right, so I'm going to line this up. I did do it a little crooked, but as long as I get my sentiment on all the way on there, I think I'm good. So I'm going to just kind of off-center this, run this through my die cut. All right. And here is my die cut. Super simple. All right, so final thing we did for that, so we're going to just grab these couple things. This just needs a teeny weeny trim and a nice score. So 4 1/4. I'm gonna score this at 5 1/2. And then we'll put our card together. Okay, so for this, what I did is I have my twine. And this is a, I don't know if this is a newer one or an older one. They used to have it one way, then they changed it. This is probably, it's probably old, but they probably went back to what they did well. So what you're going to do is you're going to wrap this through, and I find that it's easier if you start with it on the spool. So you're going to just wrap over again. I'll try my best not to make this too long so you're not suffering. So we're just going to go with 3. Oh my goodness. Butterfingers. Okay. We have those. We're going to kind of neaten it up. And then this one's going to go around the back. Okay, so we have that. Grab it. I'm going to snip it. And then, leaving that down, I'm going to grab a little piece of washi. So you could use Scotch tape if you wanted to. Little piece of washi, whatever really works for you. It's your choice. A little piece of Post-it tape. But I'm going to bring this around. All I'm kind of doing is trying to straighten these just slightly. And right like that. Okay, so If anything hangs, you can kind of adjust this a little bit, but we're going to just do the same thing again. So just wrapping 2, 3, 4, just kind of moving them to the middle, giving them a little snip, bringing it over, same thing again. You're just going to grab another little piece. I do try to make them just a little bit tighter because once you put it down, especially once you adhere it, you can't really adjust it very much. So I'm pressing, and then you kind of just make sure they mostly line up, okay? I'm going to give them a press, and then what I'm going to do is grab just a little scrap of, not adhesive, dimensionals. I'll just use these little pieces here. 1, 2. Really, that's it. You don't really need anything farther than that. And then I also do sometimes either use a little piece of washi tape or Scotch tape to close that, just so it doesn't roll all over my craft room. That's a whole nother problem. We are going to save that for another day of discussion. So I'm going to close this. Since I have a little smudge here, I'm going to just use that size. That way I can cover it up. Okay, this panel is going to go onto the front, just like so. And then all we have to do is just decide where we want our happy birthday. Now, since I have so much empty space up here, since I don't have the palm trees to offset, I think I'm going to move this up a little bit higher. So I'm just going to grab my liquid glue. I have just a teeny overhang here, and it's going to bother me, even though I know nobody's going to see the back of this card, but because I know it's there, I'm going to just trim it off just a little bit. And then we're going to add some adhesive. Make sure I have it opening the correct direction. Put that on. Take this off. This would be a really nice, if you have a friend that has a summer birthday, nice mail card, because it's not really very foofy, girly. I like that. I think it's a really cool card. I will say, if I have a preference, because I designed it one way originally and I was just trying to make it work for you all, so maybe you may happen to have paradise palms. I do like it way better with the actual palm trees, but you know, sometimes you have to learn to adapt. I probably slightly didn't center this as well. I feel like when I did this, I think I might have cut this down even a little bit farther. I feel like that's almost 3 3/4 by 5. Yeah, it's just a little bit. These were kind of winged, so they really aren't quite 4 by 5 1/4, but they're still cute. I still think they're nice. So again, this used the Ways of Inspiration, and then since Paradise Palms retired, I pulled in Oceanfront. I do think that you could totally go with some sort of a palm, so maybe you have something different. Lord knows we definitely had many different palm stamp sets, and I love them all. So I thank you all so very much for watching me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them on here. I do love reading comments, so if you take the time to write it, I absolutely will take the time to make sure that I read it. And if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe and follow me here, and then you can get more inspiration when I put up a new video. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.